All right, we are now live. What's going on? Actually, I'm going to take Dave off the stage for a second. I'm like new to this because I've been gone for a bit. Welcome, welcome back for me. Hey, everybody. Good to be back. I was gone for a short bit. First things first, let's talk about some important stuff. U.S. ARC, fighting for yours and my right to own the reptiles and amphibians we like. And of course, we love these animals, and we don't want bad legislation or unfair infringement upon our right to own our animals. And U.S. ARC combats that. They have a team of lawyers. You got Phil Goss. You got Danielle down there in Florida. You got Vanessa. You got a bunch of people doing a lot of really cool, good stuff, and they're winning the fight, and they need our support. You can buy merchandise. You can buy, memberships. So please support U.S. ARC. Reptile Super Show. It just happened. It was good. And then now we're Anaheim's coming up. I don't know when it is. It's in September. I do know I'll be there. Now, let's welcome the guest, who's Dave. And then a picture of me on a nude dude's body, or a guy that could possibly be nude. He's at least shirtless.
This was my favorite background when you were gone. This made me miss you the most.
This is how often did you do this background?
I did it for one episode with Eric when we talked corn snakes, and I think it made him uncomfortable the entire time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never really acknowledged it the entire podcast, so I think it was a little off-putting.
That's kind of funny.
You know what this is from?
Ghost?
Yeah, it's Ghost. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you got the Ghost, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Because, you were gone. You were dead to me for a while. But you're still there, helping me along.
I got you. Yeah. That kind of ghost, not like a ball python ghost or an Anery hypo combo. I see.
No. This is, man.
So what was your take of Pomona? Because I actually talked to you there. We ran into each other, but it's so busy. I'm running my table. You're there hanging out with Chad Halker, having a good time. You guys are going around doing all kinds of stuff. What happened with you at Pomona? What did you do? Highlights, stories. Tell me what's going on.
Well, honestly, so that was Chad's first Pomona. So, that was the first time I really put a lot of time into walking and looking at tables. I hate to say it. I usually don't want to spend money, so I don't usually walk a show, but I got to do a couple rounds. Got to see a lot of things I really liked. Blue Beauties. I can't remember the breeder's name. I feel bad for not remembering it, but that stood out to me at the show. And did you see those albino arabesque boas with that like really incredible contrast of like hot pink and like yellow?
I did not see those. So they're albino arabesque, and did they have another gene? I just assume in there.
You know what? It was a pastel gene that I should know this being the boa guy. I'm going to bring up the picture, but yeah, here, check that out.
So these are more pictures of me, what the fuck is that? All right, it looks like it has a lot of like reds and pinks and peaches.
Yeah, so it's a heavy pink background. That made it look a lot more blingy. This one, I should have sent them to you, but yeah, that was probably my favorite one.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, because if everybody should know, Dave's a big boa guy. Dave breeds boas, and
KRP red. I think it's an Aztec and Arabesque.
Okay, so it's an Aztec, Arabesque, albino, and it has poly lineages because you said KRB, so there's like a pastel, like high pink lineage in there too.
Yeah, it's a pastel lineage. I could be wrong on those parents also too. I think I said the parents wrong. It's Arabesque at least. I can't guarantee Aztec, but KRB is a European pastel line. This gentleman has put years into it. Every time I'm at the show, I always go and look at his animals. I think the ones I saw on his table this time were babies I saw 2 years ago that he had on hold. I thought that was pretty cool. And, you had Bob Applegate right across from you. I thought that was awesome.
That's the second time in a row. Yeah, that's kind of funny that, he's a big legend, but that's the one unfortunate part. A lot of the new generation, don't even know.
No, and we talked about it. We're going to have him on an episode pretty soon. I couldn't make it work for us this week, but maybe in 2 weeks. We were talking about Envy Snows.
Yeah,
I think we're going to have him on the podcast on the 25th. You okay with that?
Glenn's Reptiles?
No, not Glenn.
Applegate?
Fighting with Glenn.
Okay, yeah. Oh, Envy Reptiles, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So he's available for the 25th, so I think that's gonna be our next episode if you're cool with that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I've talked to him before at the Salt Lake show. I've talked to him a couple times. He's a nice guy.
Yeah,
and
really
so
nice
again, I thought because I did see Glenn Reptiles at the Pomona, and then Bob Applegate. I didn't really talk to him much. I should introduce myself more, just because I'm like I know he kept and bred a lot of beaded lizards. And I know he was like one of the real first successful people to consistently reproduce them, as far as I know.
Yeah. No, he he's had his hand in a lot of things. When we get a chance to talk to him, I think we'll kind of just play the history game with him. I told you on multiple occasions my neighbor used to work for him. So I pulled him to the side the other day and I was chatting him up, and it looks like he worked with them in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s.
That's a really interesting time. He might be good to have on a podcast.
Yeah, I thought about maybe inviting him over for that, but I would hate it if I bring him on here and then Bob Applegate doesn't know who the fuck he is, even though he worked for him.
That's possible. I don't think that would happen, though. If you worked for him for like 5 or 10 years, I think it'd be kind of hard to forget that person.
Well, I brought it up to him at the show that I had met somebody out by me that used to work for him. And, his comment was, he had a lot of people collecting for him back then. And a lot of those guys were considered his workers. So I don't know if he's going to remember him, but I told him to write me down a list of names from that era that he remembers. And he brought me over like 10 names I could drop while talking to Bob Applegate that were within that like circle of friends back then. Hopefully that list of names will bring out some unique stories from Bob.
Okay. Is that my face on Hunger Games, like people?
No, this is that one religious show. What's that new religious one with that guy from Eastbound Down?
I've seen clips. I don't know what it is.
It's a hilarious show. Chad turned me onto it. I really suck with names tonight, but it's like it starts with an R.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I've
seen Hunger Games to you?
I've seen clips from it. Righteous Gemstones.
Gemstones. Yeah.
Righteous Gemstones.
Just looked it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that Walter Goggins guy.
Yeah. No. I can't find the video anymore, but somebody made one of like. It was like scrolling through Justin Quebecca's ads, and everyone was like a $10,000, $15,000 ad. And then it had a scene from the show where that guy is all like, just like saying, we're just getting by over here. We're just trying to survive.
Oh, yeah, I seen that. Yeah, so that was like a year ago. That was a good one. Yeah, Justin Quebeca there showing his like $30,000 ball python and stuff. And Justin actually even commented, he's like, LOL.
Yeah, no, I love that. If you want to nerd out later, Justin did a new video this week, and it was like video 299, and he pretty much recapped everything he's done on YouTube since 2008, and he showed like his very first like video he posted on there when he was 15 years old. He showed like
15.
his first 15 years old. Yeah, he said his friend came over and like told him he has to do YouTube videos to show off his little collection, but it was when he was living in Oklahoma. But yeah, it kind of goes.
So he had snakes at a young age then. I thought he had snakes like so he did have snakes when he was in his teens.
Yeah, Justin has been a reptile keeper forever. Now he started working with ball pythons, I think in his late teens, early 20s. But no, it's a really good video. Like I said, it's like 30-second clips. He kind of talks about it a little bit, a little nostalgia. I liked it a lot. I only got halfway through. I put it down. It's like a 9-minute video. I just couldn't commit to a full 9 minutes today.
You couldn't commit to a full. Oh yeah, it is a busy day. I got
it. But no, I would suggest going watching it. Like I said, it was just unique. Seeing somebody who was kind of putzing around with that back then, and the evolution of his rack systems. He had like melamine racks at the beginning with like $7,000 spider ball pythons in it. I don't know exactly what year it was, but he says in the video he was the second one ever to make a lavender pied. It's unique. If you didn't know Justin from like the early days, it's kind of cool going back and getting a little recap.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't. Yeah, that's pretty neat. I'll have to check that out.
It's humbling because, like I said, seeing someone come from like where he started and what he's turned it into, it's a good feeling. But man, it took him 20 years.
Well, that's pretty cool to have that documentation. And that's the thing. Like, I don't have like tons of documentation because I wasn't really active online for a long time. I have a little notebook I kept from like 2001 to like 2007. And like, I didn't like do like, I wish I was more active in it. And I did make some pretty good notes. But I mean, like most people probably think it's like pretty impressive. I was like, it's not really that long because like I only did like, so much. And I was like, at that age, I got kind of burnt out writing exactly everything. And when I really wanted to, I mean, I was keeping some stuff that's like, a lot of stuff wasn't really that important, but I didn't know exactly what was important yet, completely. And a lot of it was just my, enthusiasm to try to, record everything that was going on. But a lot of it, I do mental notes and stuff. And, that's the unfortunate part with mental notes is like, for one, you can forget stuff. And then two, there's no proof of it. And like I lost my last Instagram, and I actually, that I wish I never lost that because that started in 2016, and that would have actually been coming up on 10 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's that's my problem too. Like I never post any animal pictures on Facebook. I never really kept up a business page very well over the last 20 years. Like I have some Polaroid pictures I dug up. 10, 12 years ago, I get reminders of litters I used to have or ball python clutches, some of my early skink litters I posted. But man, I wish I had it all just in one neat little spot where it's just always there, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah. No, we could learn from that. If you're newer keepers, start documenting some of your stuff you do. Make some videos. It'd be cool to have something to reflect back on in the future. Yeah. And that's pretty neat.
Pretty cool. I've talked about this before, but like, Brittany Gobble coming up in the reptile industry, like she started social media before she even started breeding. She was kind of like building her collection and having people like follow her along the way. There was a breeder up in Canada, JP. He kind of did the same time as he was building this ball python collection. And before they even started producing, these guys had tens of thousands of followers. And man, like I said, as bad as I want it, I don't know if it's laziness or what the deal is, man, but I'm not that motivated to post stuff.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's like, it's some people like, depends. I'm not saying you're like this, but some people don't want to be on social media that much, or, it's not really their style. Sometimes it does take extra time. It was like Ethan just says, that's what Husbandry Pro notes, for Husbandry Pro. Yeah, it seems, and the thing is, there's like definitely when I see Husbandry Pro, there's definitely like, a lot of pros to it. Like there's certain things I wouldn't actually utilize because for me, I don't think it's very important. But if you want to like keep track of parental, parent history and stuff. But the one problem is too, it's like it takes a lot of time to input some of that information unless you're, have a relatively small collection. I mean, I'd have to play around with it and see, but I would input like, breeding history of adults and then information regarding health, growth, and then like shed cycles. A lot of stuff I already know, but it'd be cool to have, certain stuff. But the funny thing is, it's like, they have certain things for like inputting feeding to make sure your Hognose fed or whatever that they ate. And so you can bring up all the years and then you can transfer it to somebody. It's like, man, you got to input everything. I was like, well, if I'm feeding a rack of 100 Hognose and 99 of them eat, it's easier just to like, notate the one that may have missed a meal, and so a lot of times that's all I do is I notate the ones that are, maybe a little tricky or they might need some time, like, for the metabolic rate to pick up more or for, them for, rodent diet to resonate with them. And you got to find or play around with what they want, the presentation, the scent type. So anyway, I just notate the stuff that's kind of being tricky. But, then sometimes you get people too, like, oh, when does the snake last shed and stuff? And it's like, oh, I don't exactly always have that, but that's never that important. That's one interesting question I think I get sometimes. Have you ever gotten this one, Dave, where they're like, oh, my snake hasn't shed in a bit. They're like, what's wrong with it? I mean, probably not when you're working like pythons and bows, but Hognose shed very infrequently sometimes. And so people think it's like a sign of a health issue. And it's like, well, if your snake is healthy and fine and you can tell it's eating and everything looks good, why do you think there's a problem just because it hasn't shed yet? It's like, what would that even, imply? But yeah, Hognose, sometimes I've had to go 4 or 5 months, maybe even a little longer. I think some close to 6 months between shed cycles. For adults, younger ones are shedding, even some young ones, about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, people always ask for like a note card with like shed cycle or like when was the last shed. I want dates on everything. That's another thing too that, I make notes when it's noticeably wrong, when there's something like, I got to be keeping an eye on. If I miss one meal, I'm not usually making a note of it. I miss a couple meals, I'll start making notes of it. But, you know, shed, I just never really have written down a shed date except post-ovulation shed dates.
That's what I do. I do sheds for breeding season. I'm like pretty militant with wanting to know sheds. Like if we're like too busy and we can't notate sheds and the snakes are shedding out and we're spot cleaning, I'm like, leave the sheds in there. You know, unless the thing is like rolled up in a turd and in the water bowl, then, you know, then mark it. But, you know, and then clean that out. But, you know, if there's just like a nice clean shed in there, I'm like, leave it in there. And I've actually used sheds too to try to, you know, instigate or try to stimulate breeding by putting in different sheds from other hognose within another breeding group. And I mean, that has minimal success. I actually had this one male that would only breed with certain females. This happens a few times to me where a male hognose is particular with the female he's interested in. And whether the female is receptive or not, you know, they can be receptive. The male's just not interested in certain ones. You can put him with another female and he's all over her. Leave him with a female he's not interested in for like 5 days at a time, not interested, take him out, put him back in, just not interested. And I really wanted this one male to breed his female, and he just was not interested. And so I put in some snake sheds from another female male, and then he was trying to court aggressively the shed and not the other female. And I was like, man, this thing just won't, like, you know, even go near this female, except for when they're crawling around. And then basically she was like an object to him, like, you know, like just an inanimate object, like didn't care. And then, you know, I'd put him with other females and he'd lock up. And so anyway, you know, that's not common, but I have seen peculiar behavior like that. And, you know, anyway.
Yeah, the shed thing, man, you know, I feel like that's something I read about when I first got in the hobby, throwing a male shed in with another male to kind of like provoke a little bit of breeding. That was a big thing I heard in boas, but I think I've probably heard that in like every species, and it's not really a guarantee.
No, it doesn't really seem to really do too much. I'd always say, like, here's the thing. If I have a male hognose and a female, and I really want to stimulate breeding because nothing's happening, I'll put in more males, you know, but, you know, that's where it can be a little tricky because it's like, well, what if you only have one of that males? And well, that's where you can try a few sheds and then, you know, or even put a other male in there and just observe them and make sure, you know, then take that other male out and then see if that does something. But generally for me, I have a couple males of a certain mutation. So I'll put like, you know, 2 or 3 males sometimes on a female. I had one female that would be like, I'd consider her lamely receptive. She would like kind of wag her tail and arch it and then give up after seconds. So like, you know, the male had like no time and then she'd just kind of lay there and he would be like ramming her with his anal plate, trying to get on her tail. And she'd just be like laying there. And this female had slugged out with me a couple of years. I remember people would be like telling me, because I'd bitch about it. People were like, oh, you probably just missed the ovulation cycle. And, you know, that's why you're not getting locks and, or you're getting, you know, fertile eggs. I'm like, no, it's because she's not, like, the males just aren't locking. And I have the males in there well ahead of time before egg follicle development. And so, and then some people are like, well, how do you know? You're not watching that. You're not down there 24/7. And at the time I was like, well, I'm up, you know, like 14, 16 hours in that snake room during breeding season, go to sleep, set a timer. I wake up 3-4 hours in the middle of my sleep, check on them. It is possible to miss a lock. Some hognose only lock for a couple hours. But there's other signs that they can lock too. And I was like, I'm not seeing any of that. And I was like, I see this female. She wouldn't get, you know, let a male lock, and she slugged out. And I know it's because she didn't let the male lock. So the following season, because I had the problem with 2 females. They were both sable females. And this was when sables were like a lot of money and they were a new gene. And, you know, of course I wanted to, you know, produce some cool sable stuff. And so then the following year, they were doing the same thing. And I was like, it was driving me nuts. So I put them in tubs. And actually my dad suggested that one because he'd do that for his frogs and stuff. And I drove them down through the valley by her house and I drove around with them. Then I set them back up in a bigger tub and I put them by my window so they get natural light. And I opened up the screen window so they get, and I put 4 males with the female and I finally got a lock and then I got good eggs.
Nice. Yeah, you know, I was going to bring up the whole driving them around thing. You know, other than getting a stubborn animal to start breeding, I don't think I've ever gone out of my way to drive a snake around to see if I could get it in the mood to breed anything. But I've heard people using that one, and that is one that I've heard does work. Not 100%, but I hear it works.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, when snakes breed in the wild, a lot of times they're, you know, they're active, they're moving around. And when you're driving up, like, especially where I'm at, the elevation changes. So I'm going a few 100-foot elevation pretty quickly up and down. And, you know, and then I, like, you know, that may have helped, but I also put them in the winter. And also, I put 4 friggin' males with the female. That's the most males I've ever had. I never went more than 4. I've never really seen it necessary to go even more than that. But yeah, I went nuts. And at that point, I was like, I'll take anything to breed this female. So there's like Arctic albinos and like AAAs on her, and that's like it's like a Arctic albino bredder.
So, with the blue tongue skinks, it used to be all my stuff was, blue tongue skinks. I didn't have anything that was really perfected yet when it came to like a certain lineage. So like I was using like 1 or 2 males per female, and I feel like I did very well when I did that. It was just confusing to pick out who the dad was, and a lot of people wanted to know lineage for so long there. Sure. I got back to single male breeding. I think next year I'm going to have enough males that I might kind of pass them around a little bit between females just to maybe see if I get a higher success rate.
Well, the funny thing is in the wild, almost all these species of snakes are group breeding or multiple males are competing to breed with a female. Now, I do go for just one lock with my Hognose when I breed them. But sometimes when I'm breeding them, I'll do multiple males. And, sometimes I get multiple locks, rarely. Generally, I'm only doing one lock. And then Heart Scales asked if you ever had males have an issue with each other. Believe it or not, I had one male lock up with another male, and a guaranteed other male. I'm not kidding. So he was just in his, his cloaca, his colon. And, and it was like that male was freaking out, and it took him a while to detach. And then that male that actually got bred dropped dead like a week later. And I don't know if that because he was fine. And I never had like male Hognose just like randomly drop dead like ever. So I don't know if it's a coincidence, but anyway, yeah, that was pretty terrible.
Interesting. Yeah, no. So you remember when I picked up your dad's corn snake collection? Like,
yes,
it was like a decade ago at this point, maybe longer. He had that aneurystic scaleless male in there. So I used that male to make my own hets, like probably within the first couple of years of getting that collection from him. I bred that male back to the offspring for 3 years and never made a fucking scaleless. And this year, I made like 4 scaleless and 1 clutch. So I literally bred visual to het for 3 or 4 seasons. I probably made about 50, 60, 70 eggs before I made a single scaleless.
That's probably some of the worst odds I've ever heard of in my life.
It was so bad. We were going to give up on the project. I was actually, Bree was talking to Cheryl. If those females didn't make a scaleless this year, she was just going to send them off. We were going to give up.
You know what? Those micro scale ones are really cool. They used to call them micro pavers at first. The micro scale corns, I like those a lot.
Yeah, was that something that was started? Was that in Germany it started or France?
It was somewhere in Europe, maybe in France. My dad actually got some from the originator, and he had them and bred them a bit, and then he sold them, and there wasn't a lot of interest at that time. The funny thing is they're getting more interest now, but they're actually pretty cool. And for people that scaleless corns, they have belly scoots, they have some like upper labial scales. The scaleless corns, as far as if you're taking good care of them, like they don't seem to have any health issues. They don't seem to really, have problems from being scaleless, unlike other species that are scales. But then I know the micro scale ones, I mean, they just have the scales that are they're just diminutive and they look really weird. They're pretty interesting though. I seen I think it was my dad's one friend showed him like a butter stripe micro paver where small scale. Yeah. And it looked really good. It looked really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm in a bunch of the corn snake groups on Facebook, and I have seen quite a few micro scale posts this year, and I liked everything I saw. I don't know if I go after those projects right now, seeing I have the scaleless. I'm pretty content with that. I'm finally making a couple. Now I'm probably going to expand on it. I kind of want to build up some like orchid stuff. I haven't had a good opportunity to get many orchids over the years.
I don't even know what that is. That's a new corn morph?
No, it's been around for over a decade plus again, but it started overseas. I think it's like sun-kissed bred to lavender, I believe. Okay. And it's a beautiful one. It's one of my top 5s when it comes to corn snakes. I've got some double hets I made these past few years where those red albinos your father had. I bred those to a what is that? Is it charcoal? The other line of anery?
Yeah, there's charcoal. That's the anery B, and then the normal anery would be the anery A. Yeah. You know what the funny thing is? I always found about that. They'd say, I remember in Reptiles magazines and like other books, like I'm not a big corn snake guy. My dad was the corn snake person. I was aware. I've kept corn snakes like a couple times, but anyway, charcoal and anteater are supposed to be incompatible, not allelic. But from what I remember later on, that people would breed charcoals to anteaters and they get all visuals.
So I don't know if that's true. I did use the charcoal 1 year to breed to one of your dad's vanishing salmon snows.
Yeah.
And I did not make any anteries.
Okay, so it is true they are not allelic, two types.
It doesn't mean those charcoals that someone had couldn't have maybe been a double visual antery and they didn't realize it. Because I'm sure early on they probably bred them some of the type 1 antery. And I'm sure there's some double visuals out there and people don't know it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm sure they get mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, but what have you have you picked up anything new this past couple shows, like just for fun? Or you had something behind your table at the last show.
I got a new beaded lizard, MJ. Thank you, MJ. He gave me his one adult male beaded lizard. It's still at my friend Joe's place. When I left, the guy MJ's friend gave it to us in a container, and it didn't have the best lid. And the first day it was fine. You can already tell where this story's going. And then when we were leaving, Joe's like, "Well, he put it in his kitchen and everything, and closed the door, and so it's away from everything." And anyway, the beaded lizard popped out, and it climbed up on his fridge and knocked over all kinds of shit. And then he took a picture of it on top of his fridge. And so I got the new beaded lizard. I picked up a couple hypo hognose, like really nice red phase ones, and that's really about it. I think later this year I'll have some news on some new projects. Probably late fall. I'm doing some interesting pairings and everything. But as far as pickups, pretty limited because of my perma quarantine. Getting new stuff. While I love buying stuff, getting new stuff, it's just I have a lot already, and it can also be stressful because of the quarantining aspect.
No, I get that. I at the new facility, I keep on telling you, keep on making changes. We got like different sections of the building for different things. It's been so long since I've refreshed everything, in my opinion. Like a lot of my stock is older stock I've been working with for over 10 years now. I kind of not so much just saying I want to replace it, but like I kind of want to reamp a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, get some of the older stuff, maybe move it out to the pet community, bring some new stuff in to start working with. I've been looking at a lot of bull snake stuff and a lot of gopher snake stuff the last couple of years. Jason Nielsen that we're having on, Envy, he just made some very unique xanthic bulls. I believe they're from a certain region. They look a little bit darker, kind of smokier. But what's something I was thinking about too that's been catching my eye that I used to hate? False water cobras.
Oh, okay. Why'd you used to hate false water cobras?
Tell you the truth, the first few times I saw them, they were at the South Carolina Repticon, and everything was just so trashy around them. I just couldn't appreciate the species.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but now the lavenders. I think the scales looks really interesting, and it wasn't until recently I didn't realize how big they got.
They do. Yeah, they're pretty good size. I don't know what their max size is, but I think it's like the average adult size is like in the maybe 7 foot range.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about working with the Madagascar hognose?
In the past, it's what Leo Heterodon. The funny thing about those is like I'd say I was more interested when I was younger, and I think it was kind of just like this interest in anything called a hognose,
Yeah.
And so the Lystrophis, these Latin American hognose, those ones interested me, like the Dorbigani, and it's like I'd say my top ones I'm most interested in would be, of course, Plains hognose is my number one. I really like Simus. I like that. The interesting thing about Simus is they have a limited range. They're the smallest. They have the largest rostral scale. They're the most closely related to Plains. That might be a broad assumption on my part, but that's more the physical attributes and stuff. But the Southern hognose are like very elusive. They're from like these like pine-like savannas in, northern Florida and like parts of Georgia and South Carolina and a little reminiscent area in North Carolina. I think they're extirpated from Alabama. And anyway, they're very cool. I like Simus a lot. And then Kennerly, the Mexican hognose, which is very similar to Plains hognose, further southern range. They were you know, separated, I guess, due to glacial activity, and they integrate now. And I had Mexican hognose. Actually, in my first 5 hognose, 1 or 2 of them were Mexican. And it was maybe the first 6 or 7. I know I had at least 2 Mexican hognose. I had them a couple times, and they were wild caught ones. And because and I knew they were Mexicans even back then, but they would just call everything a Western hognose back then. And these were like most of my first hognose were all wild caught. This was late 90s and very early 2000s. I got my first hognose and would have been 96. Yeah, I think that would have been 96 or early 97. Maybe it was early 97. And so, anyway, but the Madagascar giant hognose, I know this one guy, he sent me some pictures. It just hatched out a nice clutch. And I seen a few other breeders. I think Estlin got a clutch. And the funny thing is, nobody's getting the one guy, his clutch looked amazing. And he had 16 or 18 eggs. I'm like, oh, good for you. I'm like, I'd like to see a massive clutch, right? But I think he got 9 hatchlings, if I'm not mistaken, 8 or 9, but they're very healthy. But then the others were just not good eggs. And I do know they're very difficult to get feeding. And I'd imagine, I don't know anything about them. I don't know anything about Madagascar giant hognose. I know their, genus name. I know what they look like. I know they get pretty big. And I'd imagine in the wild, I bet they eat a lot of reptile eggs. And I'm sure they have some, they eat lizards too. But those are assumptions there. But yeah, they are cool. When people have them, I like to appreciate them, but I doubt I'll ever own one.
I think, another name is Josh Elder. I think he might have, I don't know if he was actually breeding them or if he got an gravid female, but I thought I saw him make a post about the Madagascar. Last question on that. What do you think the chances are you can breed a Madagascar to a Western hognose and get offspring?
I'd say about 0%.
0%?
I'm saying I'm going to just go out there and say no way. Just because
you don't think so?
They just evolved to look similar. They evolved, separately. I forget the name for it. If Nick Mutton was here, he could help me out. But there's a divergent and evolution, and that's not divergent evolution. That's it's kind of you can find snakes or even certain or you get other animals evolve. They're completely completely unrelated and evolved in basically similar environments to where they acquired similar physical characteristics and attributes to survive.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought it'd be kind of cool if you could take your best Western hognose mutation with 9 genes in it, breed it to one Madagascar, and just make a bunch of giant snakes.
You might be able to do it with Simus. Simus is maybe possible. I don't think anybody's tried it. I know somebody tried Eastern platyrinos with Nassicus, and they got 4 eggs that looked perfect, but there was no embryos in them. And when I tried to hybridize Eublepharis hardwicki, the East Indian leopard geckos with macularis, I'd get a bunch of good-looking eggs, but there's no embryos in them, which is funny because they're both Eublepharis, and I'm wondering if they're actually as closely related as they think they are because I was unable to even hybridize them. So I thought that was interesting. And that's the thing. I think hybridization is it's funny how it gets hate, but I brought that up a few times. I mean, there is a scientific aspect and quality to it. You breed a Woma python to a ball python or a ball python to a retic, now obviously people are okay, you can get fertile eggs and you can hatch out babies. But before that, I think a lot of people would have highly doubted. And I would have I think a lot of people are there's no way a Woma python that's on a completely different continent evolved that to the point where it doesn't even have heat pits. Woma and blackhead pythons eat a lot of lizards versus a ball python is, has heat pits and they rely on that for hunting and they're rodent feeders and their whole anatomical characteristics are vastly different. You look at these things and be like, there's no way these things can hybridize. Nerd does it. You got the wall. And it's holy shit. That is so weird. And so I think that that has some valid place other than as far as scientific purposes for hey, this is some evidence for taxonomy and that part of the information on whatever species you're looking at.
So I don't want to sound like an idiot, but I'm sure at some point 2 different species hybridized and actually became a new dominant species. I mean, if we've proven that you can breed a retic to a ball python, a woma to a ball python, all these different colubrids can be bred together, king snake, corn snake, whatever else. Like, you know, if something became dominant, like a mutation in the wild, you think that's possible?
Well, yeah, there's definitely examples of that. You know, like Canadian geese, I think they almost went extinct. And man, I might be wrong on this one. It is either Canadian geese or another goose, and they used another species of goose to make some hybrids, and that's how they had enough genetic diversity for it to keep them going. And cheetahs actually at one point almost went extinct, and they could actually trace them back in their DNA because they're so closely related. Based on their DNA, they could tell at one point cheetahs were probably down to fewer than 100 and were basically on the brink of extinction, and probably not due to man. It was like due to climate change, just due to natural occurrences. And I forget, it's like they think it happened like 20,000 years ago. That's just from real loose like memory from reading months ago about it.
Yeah.
So I read about this stuff sometimes like once, and sometimes I read like, you know, I'm not going to remember it verbatim.
Same way.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, but yeah, I mean, I've heard of crazy stuff like fox snakes and black rat snakes hybridizing in the wild. Makes sense. You know, I've heard of gopher snakes and Cal Kings hybridizing in the wild. Now, I will say things like retics and Burmese. Obviously, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just going based off of stuff I see and what people are saying. And there's definitely some like strong proof of it, like bat eaters, the Burm retic hybrids.
Timber, rattlesnake, eastern diamondback.
Yeah, how's that look?
It looks good, man. It's beastie as fuck, but I'm sure that could happen in the wild. But I've seen them in the zoos. You'll have to dig up a picture, but yeah, man, it's a manly ass looking rattlesnake.
Yeah, Alvaro's in here. That's what you talked about, bottlenecking. That's the term for what happened to cheetahs. Like anytime, you know, it's definitely a term that's like, you know, you used when there's a very small gene population, and then you know, you keep selecting or you keep breeding those that limited gene population, and you end up with a resulting, you know, offspring, and then generational offspring after that. And so they're going to be, it's like, you know, it can happen with anything. You can have bottlenecking and, you know, isolated populations of a reptile, and then you get specific locales or looks. And then sometimes it, you know, is the end for the animal. Sometimes it has negative impacts, and sometimes they seem to do pretty good with it. I mean, cheetahs, I don't know if they have, I heard they have some issues, but I don't know. They seem to be doing pretty good. I guess there's more and more, like, how many cheetahs are even in the wild? I don't think there's that many. I'm sure there was a lot, kind of, and then, like, in the last 100 years, because of humans this time, I'm sure the numbers are down.
Isn't there, like, some stupid statistic out there that there's more tigers in captivity in the United States than there are in the wild?
Probably. I think there's only like 2,000 tigers left. The one thing is, though, like, I heard when like tigers like turn into man-eaters and they actually specifically hunt people, that they have to go out then and kill them. Yeah, there's not many cheetahs. Global population, 7,100 individuals, representing a significant decline of over 90% since the early 20th century. So since like around like probably year 1900, cheetahs now occupy only 9% of their historical range. Good going, people. The Asiatic cheetah subspecies is critically endangered, with only a dozen remaining in Iran. Fuck. Yeah, not good.
So if we keep on bombing Iran, there could be a lot less cheetahs in a few years.
Stellar sea cow scaled success talked about. Yeah, I guess they hunted those for like oil and the blubber, and they were really easy to hunt. They basically looked like a massive ass manatee, and once they were big, they didn't have any predators, and seems like they had a limited range. And it was like in a really short period, dude, like 20, 30 years or something like that, they made them go extinct. They just kept killing them because for their fat and blubber for making oil, and then the meat on them. And I think they did stuff with their bones too. So yeah, stuff gets wiped out very fast. Dodo birds. There's this one goat Crystal was looking at, and it was actually a cold-blooded goat. And it was on this little island, and it grew very slowly. It took like a long time for it to mature. I think it took like 20, 30 years to mature this cold-blooded goat, and they fed mostly like on lichens and moss. And they were pretty slow. And so when the people arrived there, they're like, oh, like free goats to eat. And so they were like gone within years.
Okay, that's never good. Who was one, and I feel really dumb for not knowing this name right now because it's a common name. Who was that early explorer that was like documenting a lot of early animals? Just
Darwin?
Who?
Darwin?
Yeah, Darwin. Very
Okay.
easy name. Should have fucking remembered. So have you ever heard like the stories like when these guys are out on these ships, they would get the tortoises, like the Galapagos, and they put them on their back, and they just keep them there because they can live on their back for months without needing water or food. And then when the sailors were hungry, they would just butcher them.
Yeah, they'd go to town on turtle soup.
Yeah, I ate a turtle once. You ever eat a turtle?
No, I've never had turtle before. I don't even know how people lived back then. Like, you know, like every now, like we're at shows, and it's like if I don't drink water for like 6 or 8 hours, I get pretty thirsty. And it's like they'd go to these islands, and like I guess they had they had water with them and stuff. I mean, obviously people got sick and died, but I don't know. It's like you imagine like, oh, we're hungry. It's like maybe the Galapagos tortoise is ready to be bludgeoned to death, and we can have turtle soup for like 2 days straight. So
shame.
Well, they're alive, so that's pretty cool. You know, I mean, Galapagos tortoises would have been a terrible one to lose. Imagine if those were extinct, and it would be like talking about. Imagine if those were alive. It'd be so cool to see a tortoise that big.
Couldn't agree more. No, it's there was a lot of things. I think one of them did just pass away. It was like the last of his kind. Like they tried breeding him for like 50 years, and maybe he didn't recently pass. Might have been the last couple of years, and it was just a different island around the Galapagos.
Yeah, they're talking about the bison decline. Yeah, the settlers they did a lot of harm to the bison. Yeah, the bison drives
the fuck out of them.
Yep, you know it's just a waste too. That's the really bad part. Just killing them off. And I didn't know that. I mean, I know you could hybridize them with cows, but they have cow DNA. You know,
do you know it's true that they killed them off? Because other than Dances with Wolves, I've never really seen anything on bison. And I believe there was a scene where they came over a hill and there was just like dead bison everywhere.
Yeah, it's based off of that, man. It's just a fucking movie with the Water World guy in it, Kevin Costner. Yeah,
I think he drank his piss in both the movies.
Okay, so it's Bear Grylls kind of shit put in there. You should I don't know. You can't get all your information from Dances with Wolves though on the history of settlers. So I would look up the bison. I think they had pictures of it, like a lot of the skulls from all the bison.
Wild.
Yeah, somebody said heart scales. Seriously, yeah, there's a lot of info. Heart scales, they're really big into research. They do animal nutrition, and then she's right about it. Dave knows. Dave's just messing around.
Yeah, I pick I send you like 5 or 6 news articles a night on my feed of like different animal related news things, and I usually send them to you because I want to read them. I bet you I only read like 70% of them. No, wait. I bet you I don't read 70% of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's still a lot, dude. You sent me a lot. And I'm like, I know Dave isn't expecting me to read all of these.
No, pick and choose. Well, I send you these things because I always make a comment that we should just sit down and talk about animal news stories, and then we never read the news stories, and then we forget to talk about them.
Yeah, I mean, we could do some research papers, read those, and then talk about them. I mean, so I read this one with it was a study with Plains hognose snakes actually, and is on enrichment versus non-enriched environments. But I really didn't like this study because what the enriched side of it was essentially basically the way I keep my hognose pretty much. And so it's like, and a lot of people would consider the way I keep mine not enough enrichment. So it's like there's this obvious, very subjective, definition or what people consider enrichment and what's not enrichment. And so, it is an interesting study, but it's short. And then also I didn't really feel like it represented what people actually mean when they talk about enrichment. And this isn't
these stories I send you are the ones you see at a shopping or at the grocery store when you're checking out, on the cover of those magazines, the tabloids.
Yeah.
Those are the animal stories I like.
Like Nat Geo?
I don't know. I've never really read a lot of research papers over the years. I've talked to people where they've told me about certain papers, but man, I don't know why. I should read more. I listen. I don't read enough.
Same. I read an okay amount. It does take time though.
A buddy of mine wrote a book and gave it to me like 4 years ago, and he keeps on asking me if I read it. And I said as soon as he does an audio version of his book, I'll listen to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to be selective on what you read too. I really like, I mainly read just stuff online. I like research papers, and sometimes you can discern right away if the information is good or not. And then you can also kind of like skim a bit. And then if something's really good, you can like read it over and over. Because if I really need to like read something and it's, I need to read it like probably 5 times, maybe, or at least 2 times minimum before I kind of like, it adheres or I get it.
Yeah.
So
I listen to a lot of things in passing, I guess is the way of putting it, and none of it really registers. It's like just background noise a lot of times.
you just got to keep reading it then. And then write down what you find the most interesting too, or the most useful.
I have thought about that.
If you read a book, this is like, if you read a book, or if you read any information, generally you can summarize the most important parts just into a few sheets of paper. You could read a book that's 400 pages. And if there's lessons or something like that, it's probably just what the best ones are going to fit on a few pages if you summarize it, if you break it down, if you take the metaphors and the information and you consolidate the actual meaning and the point across, unless it's pure, data. But even that can sometimes be, of course, reduced and compiled. And I did that with genetics. That's how I understood genetics real quick, or pretty fast at an early age. Wrote down all the definitions, and every time I heard something I didn't know, wrote down a new definition. And the more you get, it snowballs. But the one thing is you have to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, that's the thing. Like, I remember, the one time my one friend wanted me to move to Japan. And I was like, I could never move to Japan. For one, I think I will never learn Japanese, except for a few sayings or whatever and a few words. He goes, no, you're pretty smart. He's is definitely being gracious with that. And he's like, you'll learn it real fast. I was like, no, I know myself. I know I won't, because I just don't want to. I would love to learn. I just don't have that much of an interest. So I know I'm not going to learn it.
Yeah. So, I had a factory job back when I was like 18. And this one girl that came by once an hour to do like quality control, she would throw like words at me in Chinese, like ni hao ma, and so on and so forth. So like hello to somebody that you're actually friends with. Man, other than that, I don't retain any of that stuff. And I wish I remember some of that. It's one thing I knew when I was like 8 or 9 years old that I wish I still remembered? Sign language.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When I was in my classes in Wisconsin, there was a kid in my class that was deaf. So every day we all learned a little sign language. We did that for a couple years. I'd have to get in front of the class, and like my name was Dave Alligator, so I'd have to get in front of the room and do this in front of a bunch of little kids all the time, and that was like my intro. And then I'd throw a few signs out there, and then you sit down.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but it's all gone now. I can't even get past like A, B, C. It's gone. No, you never use 2 hands. You use 2 hands sometimes, but it's a lot of 1 hand stuff.
Yeah. It looks complicated. And here's the messed up part about sign language. I don't know really much about it, but there's different sign language for different countries. They should have just made it all universal so that you can speak to anybody in sign language from across the world. But Japanese have different sign language than like American, so it's like, it's weird.
Yeah, different cultures, different languages. Some are very complex, some are simple. The sign language thing, you're right. If it was universal, that'd be great. If Braille, what do you think Braille's like in different languages?
I don't know. They should really, when they're doing that kind of stuff, they should really collaborate and just agree that, hey, this should be universal, and let's get over ourselves and try to find a way to make it all the same.
The only way we're going to get there is war.
Yeah, I don't think they need to do that for sign language.
Well, are we all going to agree on English?
Maybe. I don't know. I guess it's interesting to have diversity in languages and stuff. So, I mean, and that's always going to be but yeah, English is pretty, it's adopted. And when I'd go over to the Germany show, it's like most people knew at least a little bit of English. It was very rare I ran into somebody that I wasn't able to communicate with. And even in Japan, well, now they're coming out with stuff where things directly translated for you in AI. And so, that stuff's kind of, coming to an end where you really even need to learn another language. Well, I shouldn't say that. Well, it's easy to communicate without knowing another language.
It is very unfortunate how many applications AI are going to have in every day. And like you said, it could translate in language for you while speaking to a customer overseas. There's a lot of good things about it, but I honestly think it just makes us all a little dumber.
That's what I am kind of worried about. Yeah, it's like so much assistance, and it is. It's kind of like, oh, it's like I need a self-driving car. I need AI to do stuff for me. It's like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, you need some enrichment.
Yeah, anything, man. And even like we joke around, like I can't get anywhere anymore. Even where I live now, sometimes I'll put it in the GPS just to get there on my phone because I'm just like not remembering these rides like I would have when I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah, people used to get around just like maps. They'd tell you like a pizza delivery person, I'm on like 7th Avenue and 356 Elm Street, and they'd get there.
Yeah. So, you know what I might go do in a couple weeks?
What's that?
I might go to the Reptarium.
Oh yeah? If you do, let me know, because that's not too far from me. I've never been there. That's in Michigan, right? Is that outside in Detroit?
Yeah. What do you have anything scheduled for the weekend, August 2nd and 3rd? It's the weekend before Bob's show.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not doing anything that weekend, so I'm probably just working on snakes, getting ready for Bob's show. Are you going to go to Bob? Yeah, you're going to be at Bob's show, of course.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be hanging out. Actually, our setup is going to be Dennis McNamara, Eric, and Chad. So we kind of have this little island thing going. You're going to be right across from us.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I loved that setup last time. I love Bob's show. I wasn't expecting to like it that much. It's a very fun time. And he's doing a good job. Venue, the location, everything I like about it. I'm actually and I know Snake Discovery is going to be there. A lot of people are coming out, and then I'm going to try to probably going to take a few cinnamon hognose. I should have a few cinnamon hognose available, so I'm going to take them to that show. And that's like I've only taken cinnamon hognose to one show so far, and it sold before the show even opened, so didn't even get a chance to be looked at.
And how did you say that gene passes on? It's
fucked up. It's like, I know basic genetics pretty well. This is a very tricky one. I'll tell you that here's the thing. At first I'd say probably like hormonal influence, because there's a disparity between male and female phenotypes. And initially I thought it to be sex linked, because there's a person, their business is Draken's Cove, and they made 7 cinnamons from 2 normal appearing hognose. They don't have one iota of anything that I'd say is an unusual phenotype or something that'd be a marker for the cinnamon gene. And despite that, they've produced cinnamons from that pair 2 years in a row. I think it's been 2 years in a row now, maybe 3. And I think they've got a total of 7 cinnamons. And every single cinnamon's been a male. And then Jose Angel, the originator of cinnamons, and his cinnamons look a little different than like Draken's Cove or even my cinnamons. And then Jose Angel, he randomly produced a cinnamon, and he's like the person that coined the name. And when I see him selling them, he has mostly males. I got a cinnamon male from the UK, and it was produced by an albino cinnamon that a guy picked up from somebody, and the person didn't know it was special. And he bred the albino cinnamon, only made 1 cinnamon, and it was a male. And then TBM Reptiles, he randomly produced a cinnamon. It was a male. Mitch Davey from Fathom, he produced an LG cinnamon from his LG stuff. It's past that Sable 2, from what I remember. It's a male. John Royce was breeding some Arctic albino stuff. I'm pretty sure they're pure line, no hets. So completely unrelated. You can tell these are unrelated projects. He produced a cinnamon. It's a male. I produced a cinnamon from my LG stuff. Pure LG stuff. No... shouldn't be any weird traits mixed in there. It's a male. I produced another cinnamon this past season from some Posset Frost Swiss stuff. Very unrelated. No relation at all. And a lot of these, examples is a male. First bred my first cinnamons, I got really high expression ones. They were males. I got a couple females that were low expression. And so I'm like, all right, this looks like kind of some classic, it's not even classic, but some unusual sex-linked mutation or something. I had a pretty, I'm still going to kind of work on that theory, but I was like, very similar to color blindness. I was like, this actually might be a chromosomal sex link. And this would actually mean with that theory too, that hognose would actually be XY, XX, not ZW, ZZ. And hognose never actually been studied for that. So I was like, they actually might be XYXX. And so I was like, it's probably inheriting like color blindness. And that's why the females, it's mostly masked. That's why you can have normal ones, or ones that look normal, but they throw cinnamons. And it's like, also, it's like, color blindness, let's say in humans, is like kind of a mutation that runs around. And then this pattern is similar to that. Well, now I'm breeding cinnamons, and these are some cinnamons that were made a decent amount of males. I bred this once. I got about one clutch was like 10 eggs. There's 6 cinnamons. They were all males. And then I got another clutch, and I got like 7 cinnamons, and it was 3.4. And then recently I got another clutch, and it was like 2.3. And then these are high expression females. And then another clutch, I had like 2 high expression males and then low expression females. And so it's like, well, it is possible that there could be some chromosomal sex linkage, and maybe the other opposing sex chromosome imposes or masks it a bit. Or we're looking at something like hormonal play that's interfering with the expressivity, or there's a variable percentage of expression in these offsprings. So, but once you have it, it kind of does act like a dominant, but then I've gotten some pretty weird odds. And this is the most I've talked about it. And sometimes I like to keep this stuff quiet because then it gets repeated and it gets a little misconstrued. And then, or somebody says stuff that I've worked on and then they repeat it. And then they don't, of course, mention my name sometimes. And then it gets flooded around and like, oh yeah, we already knew how that worked. Meanwhile, it's like, you never even kept or bred them. It's kind of happened with the skullface a bit. I released information on neurological issues, and there's even people coming to me and there's like saying, "Oh, did you know about these?" And I'm like, "Yeah, who do you fucking think was talking about it?" I've had like 5 or 7 people say that, and they're not even aware that the this uncovering or the discussion of this neuro issue in the skullface gene was initially released by me and in my lives talking about it multiple times. And anyway, it gets misconstrued. And so then on Facebook, you have all these things, and people aren't even aware of some of them because somebody told somebody that told somebody. And but anyway, I'm still working on the cinnamon mutation mode of inheritance. It's a bit peculiar now that I have it, and it's I'm breeding it. It does have like a very kind of like dominant like behavior. But then, I had one clutch, or actually I've had 2 clutches like this, big clutches with cinnamon, and you get like 1 or none. And it's like, you could be like, well, those are bad odds, but I see wonky odds and I'm keeping track of them. I'm not seeing like, if you like do like genetics, like, and you keep track of stuff, like you might get these like oddball occurrences, but just like flipping a coin, it should eventually even out. And cinnamons seem like they're not evening out, so that's very interesting. So I'd say it's probably one of the most peculiar mutations I've ever come across. And then there's high expressivity. There's these really low expressivity ones. And there's ones that have just that irregular aberrant band on the nape of the neck, and they're able to reproduce them. Like you can have a cinnamon that, if it has a cinnamon marker, looks like nothing. And actually, it happened. There's this guy from overseas. He wanted to buy my one cinnamon, so I sold it to him for a lot of it was quite a bit. And I didn't really want to sell it. And I was like, well, I got this Arctic albino cinnamon male. And I was like, I could probably do without him. And I was like, this guy is this absurd amount of money. And the guy's like, let me look at him. He goes, are you sure that's a cinnamon? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it doesn't look good. I'm like, yeah, it looks all right. And he's like, I can't pay that much for that. And he's like, I could do like a lot less if you guarantee it's a cinnamon. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing a lot less. So we went back and forth. And then the guy was basically like, no. And that is a good example of when 2 fools meet. Because I would have been a fool for selling that snake, and that guy was a fool for not buying it. Hindsight's 20/20, though. I've now bred that male. He proved out to be het lavender, and every cinnamon he makes is fucking outstanding. And I've already sold 3 cinnamon babies from him that were the amount of what that male is going to be sold for, and I have him, and he's an amazing breeder, and I bred him to MORPH females. And the cinnamon mutation is a very cool mutation that really promotes and produces a lot of iridophore count in the scales. It increases melanin, it diffuses pattern, and it adds to contrast and makes some pretty cool irregular pattern on the head. It really affects the pigment though. So anyway, it's a very cool gene, and I'll bring some to the show. and because I probably have enough to fight. Every time I have a couple, though, they kind of sell. And I just don't really, because it's funny. Some people are like, I've seen some people, and I just don't say anything. You know, it's like if somebody wants to reach out to me, but they're messaging somebody like, oh, when so and so produces those, I gotta get on a wait list. I can't wait to get a cinnamon. And I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna interfere or whatever. But I was like, I have cinnamons available. So if they really wanted to get one like 1 or 2 years early, I was like, I actually have some. But the cool thing is I'm not usually challenged too much, I'd say, by mutations. You know, if somebody has something that's oddball and a mode of inheritance, usually it's pretty easy to figure out. Like Frost, Caramel, Hypo, that one is pretty, you can figure out in a few minutes that's not allelic, because a lot of people are saying it's allelic. And you could disprove that if you know what allelic is within like a couple minutes. But anyway, and the funny thing is, though, but if you look at it from a perspective of not probably understanding fully, or just like, or let's just say just not paying attention to certain details, it looks kind of like it because there are 3 phenotypes. And with allelics, you're going to have three phenotypes. You have the allelic, the one allele from each mutation phenotype, and then you have the expression on each side. I mean, unless it's an incomplete dom, then you have, you know, more phenotypes, but you know what I mean? The separate 2 gene phenotypes and then the intergrade allelic one.
Okay. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this podcast again from like the 54-minute mark to this, just to try to remember everything you just said to me. Like, I'm probably going to have to ask you this question again on a future podcast.
I like this. Well, here's the thing. I like these questions because, I mean, that's the thing. That's how I like, if I notice stuff, or I'm still trying to learn it. You know, I don't know everything. I'm not like an expert. I'm not a geneticist. I mean, the funny thing is, though, I'll talk to geneticists, and sometimes it's like, obviously they're going to know way more about a lot of things than me, especially like, meiosis, chromosomes, like they're going to know stuff that I don't even know about. But when it comes to like mode of inheritance and like reptiles or something, a lot of times I'm like, well, some of these people seem kind of clueless. And it's not because they are, it's just because they don't have experience breeding reptiles and their knowledge is based somewhere else. But sometimes it can provide some pretty good insight on how things work. And it can be difficult, though, sometimes to translate it to somebody that's, an academic, and versus like, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. And the funny thing is, like, actually, I'm going to be making a video on the Hypo Frost Caramel complex. And it's pretty interesting. It's actually, once you look at it, it's once I break it down, the best way is like process of elimination. I'm going to be like, well, this is what's proposed. It's not that. It's proposed as this. It's not that. It's been proposed. And it's crazy because this has been going on for like 10, 15 years. And I got into the project definitely much later. But right away, I could tell, I was like, yeah, there's like what everybody's saying is completely incorrect. And it's very funny because people would get these bizarre results. And then, a lot of times people would just be, like, oh, that's just how it is. And you're like, then I'm like, you don't find that weird? And they're like, no, I don't see anything weird. I'm like, so you're breeding 2 double hets and you're getting supposedly a double homozygous in abundance every time. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. If it does, maybe you should start playing the lottery.
So, do you think there'd be a value in the hognose community if there was a genetic stripe project, or do you think reducing the pattern down will kind of mess up most of the things you do with it in the first place?
Here's the thing. Hognose are so fucking awesome. Any color mutation is going to be good as long as it's healthy. If you came out with a hognose and it's called mud and the thing was just like a light, like dirty brown, I'd be like, that's cool as shit. You could try to make it look ugly, and I'd be like, it's kind of like seeing like a rat rod. Call them rat rods. Like those like hot rods, but they're like beat up, like they have a patina. They have like they're just not like you know what I mean. So anyway,
they go to punk shows.
Yeah, so like when I see like you could show me a hognose mutation, they're like, this thing's called puke, and they're like, it doesn't look that good. Now if there's a mutation and the head structure's all fucked up, yeah, I'm gonna really hate it. But as long as it's anatomically healthy and it's like, I'm probably gonna like it. And that's the thing. I love I like genetics a lot. I like hognose a lot. So it's my 2 favorite things. So like you could come out with the hognose brown, and I'm gonna be like, that thing is pretty cool. That's going to be a good morph.
Whatever happened to those guys?
Those are the those are either
I remember right.
Those are either like Germain's, Woma, Granite Jungles, or those are spider, hogs, which is basically a similar type of poly, but not related to Woma.
Okay, because those are, I think I've only ever seen a few hognose over the years that have had striping like that. That picture's got to be a decade old now.
That would probably, if it's over a decade old, that's probably the spider gene, which it actually should be older. If you have, there's some pictures. It should be in like maybe Kevin's book. I think John Barry's.
I just bought John Barry's book the other day, by the way.
Did you? He's coming out with a new one.
Oh, interesting. I kind of want to do a podcast with him. I reached out to a BOA friend.
We'll do one together with him because he's writing a hognose book, and I've been talking to him about it.
I'd be willing to bring you into that if you want to be part of it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, the way you acted, you didn't seem that excited. You're like, oh, we'll go fuck yourself. But no, okay, cool.
Why would I say that? I mean, I guess I could.
The expression,
yeah, I guess I could to be a dick or jokingly. I mean, it kind of does sound like something I'd say.
It does. So I was watching a video the other day. You remember that thing you shot me in the face with? That like.
Oh, I was hoping you'd forget about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm never gonna let you forget about it. You probably took a little. You fucked up my face.
No, I didn't. Nah, you're fine.
There was gunpowder all over me, and my eyes were crying. I couldn't open my eyes for like an hour or two.
That's not true. All right, go ahead with the story. It's a true, but it seems to be a little bit of exaggeration going on here.
A little bit of exaggeration, but so I watched a video the other day. I don't know why I didn't send it to you, but it was like a little, I think, Facebook short. And the guy wanted to show the contents inside this thing, so he took it up to a wall and blasted it. And he's picking up like little pieces of plastic and metal and all this other shit. I feel like I really dodged a bullet that day.
No, I'm glad you didn't get that was not smart of me. I was very young at the time. I was like 27, so just a little child. I did not know what I was doing. Now in the year 2025, and that's considered a kid. So I was a very little kid at the time.
That's fine. I forgave you a long time ago. It was hilarious. It was just well,
here's the thing. I'm glad it wasn't because it was one of those big mega blasters. I hit Dave in the face probably from like 5-6 feet away with it, and it was not good. Yeah, I was terrified of retaliation because man, I don't want that to happen. Especially because the thing again is I got lucky that you didn't I don't think that is very good to do. I don't suggest it.
I don't think I ever retaliated to anything that happened to me when I was hanging out with you.
Yeah, you shouldn't have. Well, no. The one time you went into my hotel room, remember you stole all my stuff?
Oh, no. Yeah, I did. No,
that was funny. I was so fucking pissed off, dude. I thought somebody came in and stole all my shit. You were like, your idea of the prank though is look, because you're thinking that I was going to think that house cleaning came and just cleaned everything. Yeah. You made everything look perfect. But we just got the hotel, so it was it wasn't messed up. We didn't even use the bed yet. So, and I was like, oh, my shit was gone. And I was looking at Andrew. I'm like, Andrew, you leave the fucking door open or something? And Andrew's stuff, he's like, oh, my stuff is gone. And I was about to go down there. I was going to be I was fuming. And then Andrew kind of ruined it at the end. After about 5 minutes, he opened up a door. And he goes, oh, all of our stuff's in here. Yeah. I'm like, did you put it in there? I was like, you're the only other than I was looking at Andrew weird because I'm like, and he's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, you're the only other one that had the fucking key to the room. And then I found out it was you.
Yeah, so and it's really amazing how good I am at this, but I think I went down to the counter and smoothed off my way into your room.
Yes.
Yeah. If I was a serial killer, I'd do very well for myself. I've gotten a lot of people's hotel room keys over the years.
Yeah, well, why not a con man? You could have said a con man.
I guess I went a little too far with that. You're right, con man.
Yeah, I was thinking, you've been really good at check forgery and stuff like that.
Sorry, I watched Dexter a lot. I just started watching a new show about someone who kills people, so I went there first.
Those are popular. People do those true crime and those murder shows. I did watch Dexter.
I liked it, and then I hated it. Like most shows. I think the only show that was ever really satisfying when it ended was Breaking Bad.
Oh, yeah. Breaking Bad was interesting. I liked it. The ending was I don't know. I guess I kind of wanted to see Walter beat cancer. But then also he was he was pretty crazy at the end. He was probably looking at life in jail.
Yeah, you know what I realized? Because I brought it up because I started watching the last season of it again 4 days ago while I was working on a few projects. That whole show happened in a year, on the timeline of the actual their life in the show.
What?
Yeah, when you go to the final season, he's like, I'm celebrating 1 year since I found out about having cancer.
Maybe cancer-free.
Nope. Finding out about he had cancer. He mentioned it on his birthday.
1 year. So that whole show happened in a 1 year period.
All that shit was supposed to go out in a year. Well, maybe it was like a year and a half because then, he's living in like the mountains for a while.
Yeah, right. Maybe a year and a half, 2 years.
How about this? By episode 7 or 5 of the final season, it was the 1 year mark of the story. That's
insane.
Yeah.
They should have made it even more like stupid. Like let's make it like 3 months. Like the dude out there writers. 1 year. That reminds me of like The Simpsons or like South Park, where it's like, it's running for 20 seasons, but they're all still the same age.
Yeah, speaking of both those shows, so I saw they killed Marge off.
Oh, I think that's like in the future. They're always doing weird stuff. I stopped watching
the final season right now, and they're getting crazy.
Oh, they're getting crazy? I mean, I guess if they are supposed to represent actual people that, people eventually, I guess, die. So,
yeah.
There is that part of life.
I hear they're having issues releasing the new season because of a buyout between our merger of two companies. And I don't know if it's a contract dispute or what, but I heard the creators are a little frustrated right now.
Huh.
Yeah, I'd be really sad if there wasn't South Park anymore. I remember in my earlier mid-teens, my grandparents taking us to the South Park movie because that shit was back in the 90s. Like, that show's
right.
my entire adult life.
Yeah, no, I'd be very sad. Even I haven't seen it the last few seasons. South Park's pretty good with satire. I would really hate to see them go.
Yeah. No,
I don't think they're going to. Matt and Trey Parker, I think those guys are each worth like $500 million.
I think that's a good chance of that.
What would they even need a buyout from? I guess they could end it. Maybe they could take a break. I mean, I think if they've gone this long, man, and they do all those characters, and I guess, things can get, taxing and whatever. But if you've done it that long, I really doubt burnout, And then they don't do as many episodes. What do they do, like 8-9 episodes like a year?
Yeah, it's like an 8-9 season. I think in the early days it was a lot more, but now they
just early days, it was a lot. Things. So I don't know, that kind of suck. I don't know. Those guys seem like they're not even that old somehow. They gotta
be in their late 50s now, maybe 60s. Because if I was like 12 or 14 years old and going to the movies,
right,
they should have been around for a while.
Yeah, I think they were in the 20. Yeah, they're 55. I mean, that's actually pretty impressive because they've been around for when I was like 9 and I'm like 38. So yeah, they're out for a couple seasons. So these guys have been active for they're doing this from their early 20s.
Yeah, was it that they went to school at that Columbine school back in the day? Because I feel like after that shooting happened, they were like in the media talking for a little while.
I don't know. I don't think so. That sounds not correct. But
it's a little far-fetched, or it could be spot on.
You could be spot on. Maybe they did go there. Yeah, they knew, or they had some ties to it. Let's see. And then Matt Stone he's 54.
Okay.
Let's see Matt Stone's net worth. Probably a lot. $700 million.
Wow. Good for them. Good for them.
That's what consistency, I guess, pays off. They're just doing it. You can tell they just have fun with it. They do a lot of their own voices and everything.
Yeah. They've been running this for 25, 30 years. So, that's a pretty good amount of money for 30 years of work.
That is.
So next time we do this, I want us to both research killer whales. There's a lot of really crazy killer whale stuff going on. I think they literally went from taking down yachts to now bringing people fish.
Okay.
There's something going on there, man.
Can we do let's do some research papers on colubrids in the wild and stuff, and I don't know if I want to talk about killer whales that much.
You want to do killer whales? Okay, that's fine. Well,
I'll browse up and we could touch on it. But I mean, I kind of like the Reptile podcast. I mean, we went into South Park a bit, and I mean, killer whales. I mean, I guess they're mammals, and so that's kind of an animal. I mean, they're a type of animal.
Well, this is the kind of stuff that happens when we don't prepare for an episode.
Right. I mean, we talked about, genetics a bit, shows we're going to be doing. I asked you about Pomona. You gave me, what did your cat do?
How about this? Pomona, house snakes, man. Did you go and look at Bushfeld's table?
I looked at the calico and the albino sunbeam snakes. Those are pretty interesting.
Those are badass. I believe that was the same breeder that had the blue beauties I liked.
Okay, yeah, I think he had a bunch of blue beauties. And I didn't get to walk around much because I was kind of busy at my table. I stopped by and visited a few guys, but it's mainly just me with my Hognose and Crystal and the group of friends.
Okay, so next time that he's at a show, you get an opportunity to look at his spread. Garrett Cardle was over there helping him out. They've been kind of
I talked to Garrett. I know he has a bunch of cool house snakes. Oh, you know what? I did see one. It was like it was a combo.
The bush-felled albino.
Yeah, it was like all white with like bluish eyes, kind of.
Oh, well, that's
a combo. It's a multi-gene combo.
Yeah, it's just. I think they literally just call it the blue-eyed. It's not a leucistic. It's a
right.
recessive project. They call it
yeah. It's like I think it's like a double recessive. It's pretty neat though. I don't know if
that's double recessive. Cool. I think that might be a single gene.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The other one they had on their table was called the Marble. I think they had that for $5,000. I took a zoom-in picture of it. I don't know if it's going to be able to show up, but no. Looks like shit. I'm gonna have to send it to you.
Oh, did you see this? This is a cool thing that Avery and I worked on. And this is something I wanted to do for a long time, and I cannot draw. And so I showed Avery, because I wanted to do like a color graph on it. This is pretty cool.
Oh, okay, that's really badass.
Hognose structure. So there's one at the bottom with poor head structure, and one on the top with very optimal.
So the one on the bottom's an albino?
Yeah, actually it is. It actually is based off of an albino.
Yeah. No, that's pretty neat, man. That's so you mentioned when you took this break from me that you were gonna do all this like social media stuff.
I did nothing.
You do much?
No, I was pretty sick for a while. I'm now finally doing better. I did literally nothing. I made some videos to help with Morph Market. I have a bunch of ideas written down. Dude, there's like a ton of stuff I really want to get done. I really want to get the Hypo Frost Caramel Gene Complex video. I want to really put out a better Hognose egg binding video, maybe some clips with Dr. Stahl. I have ones with, ideas that are just showing you, tips for, new Hognose breeders should know, don't keep your stuff real hot. Don't overfeed. I know they're just kind of, summaries of what that's going to be. Hognose structure analysis, my HSA scale, the Hognose structure analysis, and how I analyze tail-based structure analysis for breeding, all things I came up with. The head structure, that was something that was like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, nobody gave a shit about Hognose head structure. And then, I started seeing like albinos and stuff, and like other people did see it, but they just didn't really care. And they're like, oh, it's just the way they are. And when I'd pick out like albinos, or especially like when snows were new on the scene, and I was buying them, and I was like around like 25, 26, I'd be going to these different breeders' tables. And one guy had Yetis, and he showed them to me. I don't want to mention names. And I was like, he showed me, and he's like, I could do a good deal. And I was like, I'm just not interested. I was just polite, but I was like, these things I wouldn't even want to breed. And then I got some from Brent. I remember he had a bunch, and I was looking at each one and stuff, and he's getting mad. He goes, would you just buy them and go, man? He goes, they're just snows. I'm like, I'm looking, I was like, these are my snakes. I was like, they're going to be breeders. I was like, I want to make sure. And then, so then later on, not even later on, at that point, even in my early 20s, I'd have some hogs that get egg binding. And, you could tell they have a particular kind of anatomical, look for certain ones that got egg bound. And a lot of it, they had narrow ventrals. They had a narrow anal plate, and just the tail base itself was narrow. So it's just not the anal plate you're looking at. You're looking at the tail base and above the tail base too. And then a lot of it has to do with feeding too. And so there's a lot of things I want to talk about. I do like electrolytes and supplementation, NutriBack, prey variation. There's actually, I have a Reptiles magazine article that's supposed to be coming out soon for Hognose snakes, and it summarizes a lot of stuff. The unfortunate part is it's not going to all be in it. I guess it's going to get broken up into two, because initially John, he was from Reptiles magazine, was like, can you do like 2,500 words? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, hey, is it okay if it's 3,500? He goes, yeah, that's fine. And then I seen where I was going. I was like, hey, is it okay if it's like 5,000 plus? And then he's like, yeah. And as I said it to him, and he was like, oh yeah, this is like really good. He goes, this thing's massive. And I'm like, well, I'm talking about like, to do's and not to do's, the mite spray. I'm talking about, I kind of made my own little feeding chart, like, prey item size based on size of the hognose. And even I don't really do that. I eyeball everything. So actually I had to kind of go and weigh some of my snakes because I'm like, I know, but not by actual weight and stuff. And then, and then I talked about, some wild characteristics of Nasicis versus captives and, stuff like that, and how they can be like an oophagous snake in the wild. And so, there's a lot of things I want to cover because like hognose snakes, again, are like very unique. How to prevent your females from eating males, things to look for when breeding. Like, there's just so many videos. Like, it's because, ball pythons and all these other species, like there's a lot of content you can make. It's like, man, you can make a lot of content on that. Hognose, you can make far more content in certain aspects. It's like, for one, they can eat their own eggs. They can eat the male. They have like a really variable and very diverse diet in the wild. There's a lot of, and some people get them too big. People can keep them too hot. There's a lot of the negatives you see with raising Nasicis is because of too much of a high metabolic rate. So high temperatures and high food intake, improper diet. And so, there's a lot of stuff I'd really like to cover, help people with and everything. And, the one thing too, I'd like to put out there too, because like I talk about this stuff a lot. I've talked about a good majority of it. But, then some people are like, don't even know the information, originated from me. And this is like, been my life's work, figuring this stuff out. It took me, well over 20 years to come up with a lot of these methods and, and everything. Because initially when I started, hognose were just, there's definitely peculiar, attributes that people knew and, about their behavior. But they just were kind of kept like a king snake. And I'm not saying hognose are ultra difficult. Hognose are actually very simple in a lot of ways. They're not the hardest to breed, but there are ways to perfect everything. Because like actually when I was younger, people would tell me hognose, 3-4 years, 5 years max, they burn out. They're burnout breeders. I've had hognose many times breed well past 10 years of age. And then I had other breeders tell me, no way. And then I was doing it. But is lower metabolic rates and diverse diet, supplementation, and food management, just not pounding them with food once a week.
Yeah. Well, honestly, this is the first of me hearing about this. I mean, first off, congratulations. That's pretty awesome. Honestly, I love Reptile magazine. I love that it's still thriving. I still take out my old Reptile magazines all the time just to flip through and look at old articles.
Yeah, I'm glad they're back, actually. That's where a lot of my inspiration has come from, is actually Reptiles magazine. The first time I ever heard of the word iridophore was I was 13 years old, and there's this Reptiles magazine would add a ball python, a pied on the cover, and there was a genetics portion, and it's like learn genetics. And they had definitions of, genetic terminology, words. And that's where I actually got the idea. I was like, I kept reading it. I was like, let me write these down. And I knew too, as like, being in school and stuff, if you read something before you went to sleep, you're more likely to remember it. And then if you, keep reading it every day, you'll remember it. So I was like, I'm going to start doing that with all these genetic terms. And iridophore was in there. And, so that's the very first time. And I ever heard of that term. It was the Reptiles magazine. My inspiration for a lot of breeding came from Reptiles magazine, of course, from my dad too, huge part. And then my dad, the only reason I was getting Reptiles magazine was my dad was subscribing to it. I didn't decide to subscribe to Reptiles magazine when I was like 8 and 9 years and 10 years old. Obviously, my dad was subscribing to this. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad they're back. There's a lot more stuff I'd like to put in. Oh, and then also like hognose bite removal. That's been a big one, and that's a one too that like I've gotten, in the last like 7 years really vocal about, because like everybody keeps getting chewed on them. And then a lot of people still don't tell people about it. The hognose pop can tab method technique. And if people get hognose, they get chewed on by them and they're like, oh, I didn't know what to do. My hand swelled up. So it's like, that's why I tell you, like other breeders should too. Just let people know, hey, these things are mildly venomous. And if they mistake you for food, they're going to chew on you. They have a slow delivery system, but if they chew on you for 30 seconds, a minute plus, you are going to get envenomated. And the average person, they're going to freak out because they're like, a mildly venomous snake chewed on me, and now my hand's puffing up, and I don't have any experience with this. And it's itching, and they're like, they don't know if it's going to get worse. And then they're like, I'm time to panic. And they're always fine, but still, you know, and even that person that had that thrombocytopenia from Plains hognose bite, you know, the first case of thrombocytopenia from a North American Colubrid, of course, Plains hognose snake. I'll tell you what, it could have been the first not case ever of thrombocytopenia from a North American Colubrid if she just removed it. It could have been zero. The title could have been nothing because it would never have happened if she had just fucking removed it. But, you know, I don't know what it is. I'll tell them, like, you know, I've gotten that word out, and a lot of people, you know, I think talk about it, but I see other big breeders and they don't tell people sometimes. Although sometimes they might forget. So, you know, that's another possibility.
So I do pass that knowledge on to a lot of people when I talk about hognose, and
that's great. And you're not even selling them.
No, but, you know, I learned it because, you know, when I was hanging out with you, I was down in your room and I found that hognose loose. And I picked it up, and it immediately, like, grabbed onto the inside of my finger. And I was all like, a lot of this stuff's really valuable. I don't want to fuck this thing up. I'm going to go find Junior. And I think I let that thing chew on me probably for about 20 seconds to a minute. And I think I swelled up to, like,
I remember you telling me it was like a minute. I forgot that story completely until you told me. That was a Womo Lemon ghost male. And yeah, he was on you for probably at least a minute because I think I was really slow to respond.
Yeah.
It was like minimum like 40 seconds. It was like about a minute. And yeah, you got, your whole hand puffed up. And yeah, you get edema. They cause a lot of edema. They have PL2 and they have in their venom. And I forget what, like, the one thing is they get compared to bees a lot, and bees, like, their venom has a melittin, and it actually has PL2s also. But actually, that's another one I wanted to do. Spencer Green. Although, I shouldn't, like, you know, reveal all the stuff I'm going to do because then somebody's going to stake these ideas. But I'm supposed to do something with him with talking about hognose venom. So that's what I've been interested in for a long time, you know, and wanting to talk about for a very long part of my life. But that's not something I'm like. I'm not a toxicologist, you know, so it's not my place, you know. So that's why I like so it's like I'd actually like to get somebody like Dr. Grazik with Cryptosporidium. He's a leading. He's retired now, but, like, you know, I had Scott Stahl talk about, like, Cryptosporidium because, like, you know, he's a leading herp vet. So it definitely helps to get a specialist out there to help, like, you know, explain certain things because, you know, I'm not a specialist in every little facet.
No, that's fair. I was talking to MJ a little bit about it earlier, but, you know, August is going to be just such a hectic schedule between Daytona, Bob Show. I'm in Detroit for a weekend. I think I'm going to have to, like, pre-record a bunch of episodes, like, in July, so I don't have to do any in August. You might want to consider doing the same thing.
If you want to do it, because if they're falling on, like, Bob Vu's, like right now I'm at an expo, and it's a little challenging to do these, you know. Yeah. I thought this was actually, like, I was a little slow kind of, I don't know if you're like, I just feel kind of tired. You know, I did not sleep much on the plane. I didn't feel good before. Now I feel a lot better, thank God. So anyway, it's kind of a pain in the ass to do all this. I want to do it. I mean, I love this conversation. I love this stuff. But yeah, it's just like, you know, there's only so much time.
No, I'm the same way, but, you know, the reality is what next weekend's me. You got the 25th, which we said we're going to do Envy. Then the week after that, I'm in Detroit. Yeah, your weekend falls on Bob's show. That's the 8th.
Okay. Yeah, I look forward to doing Envy. And then also I want to get Alvaro in here from Scale Success. He runs a podcast too. I'm sure you heard of him. He's actually in the comments. But if you want to keep talking, I'm going to piss a bit.
You going to pee a little bit? Well, what did I talk about without you?
Just a little bit. I don't know. You can talk in the comments. Somebody said something about the last thing they're discussing was Breaking Bad.
Is that what they want to talk about? Breaking Bad some more? Talking about El Camino?
Yes.
No, I'm not going to talk about Breaking Bad. Man, I don't know what the fuck. You got to give me a topic.
Boa projects.
Oh, boa projects. So I am still doing a little bit of breeding right now. Man, with all my projects and bows right now, where I talked about having working with the same genes for like 10 or 12 years, 14 years, I need to spend some money, and I am so fucking stubborn about spending money in this industry when I have so many animals. You know, even when you talked about picking up a couple animals at the Pomona show, Hognose, that was kind of surprising, man, because I never really hear about you buying Hognose unless you're buying like a giant group of skullface. I've got some genes that I've been staring at for like 20 years. I haven't really invested in. The problem is, again, I really don't want to spend money. If I go out and get the stuff I want to work with right now, I got to spend like $5,000 to $10,000. And I don't know if I'd rather just go buy something else for fun to work with a new species or get better at the one I've been working on for 20 years.
That's up to you, but I'd say the one you've been working on for 15 or 20 years, because that's what you must really like. That's the one thing I see. I'd say if I want to reveal a big secret, probably the biggest Achilles heel I see in almost all breeders is not spending money. You gotta be afraid not to spend money. But that's the thing. I got to the point where it's like, if I have extra money, I'll live frugally. And, if there's a hognose that I really want or project, or let's say something I need for my hognose, it's like, I'm going to buy it. I mean, it's easier said than done, though. It's like, I guess I sound like a total dick there, because luckily, I lived frugally for a very long time, saved up for a very long time. And then I got ahead doing that. And now I have extra money too, because hognose sell well. But go ahead.
No, it's, I think I'm going through my frugal years right now. Even like, our buddy Eric from Cleveland, he's got this great place down in Florida now that he's probably told you about, or at least I have.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, this is a guy who spent no money as long as I've known him. I've eaten peanuts with him to survive on weekends at shows. And now he's got a spot down in Florida with acreage. He's sending me pictures of all these different species he's seen on his property. I think it's probably the happiest I've ever seen Eric in his entire life knowing him.
That's what eating peanuts can do for you sometimes. Yeah, sometimes, people underestimate what a little bit of an investment can do sometimes, or, saving money. But you also have to live life. I mean, everybody's different.
No, and, talking so Chad Holker had a very large offer on a DG puzzle, and it was at Daytona, I think 2 years ago. I mean, it was a fucking offer, and he turned it away. I didn't give him a hard time, but I was like, man, you got to take money when it's there. He's now probably made 2 or 3 times the amount of money off of that male, breeding them and making more of that and other ingredients. I look like the idiot saying you should have sold the thing. And I have sold a lot of animals over the years that I look back on it, I should have held them back.
Yeah, no, I've had that happen before. Yeah, you're never going to be perfect. There are times where it's like, wow, I should have kept that. But at the same time, sometimes you're just like, well, can't keep everything. Especially if you get to the point where you're making like a bunch of awesome stuff. And it's like, all right, well, how many of these can I actually even keep back, for myself and breed? But yeah, I definitely get that, because I've done that before. Actually, that one Arctic cinnamon male I sold like 2 years ago, I got like insane money for them, and I probably should just not have sold them. I mean, I guess it's like I did fine. I mean, I guess I really don't need to crank them out, so I guess I'm happy with it. There's really no need to, go total crazy every time with producing something.
That's fair. I had a picture I wanted to talk about, but then I just hit a weird button on my phone, so I can't find it.
Was it a boa?
No, it was a hognose, because this is a hognose show.
Yeah, well, sometimes it is.
That's not it. Oh, man.
Was it a leucistic with paradoxing? Was it a leucistic with paradoxing, or was it the super skull face?
It was the super skull face.
Yeah.
I'm going to send you a picture of it if you want to hold it up. I just sent it to you. Oh, shit, I can hold it up because I just sent it to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I do believe that's a super skull face.
You think that's super?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
The one thing I guessed right, I said the super form is going to have solid black eyes, was my guess. That has solid black eyes. Okay. It definitely has a skull face looking head structure. Sometimes they have a little bigger eyes. I did guess that the super form was going to be either more neurological or lethal. And I kind of guessed it may be lethal just because we had not seen a super form yet, and we should have many years ago. And we're given excuses as why not. So, it's kind of safe to assume, especially with the history of the breeder releasing it, that hey, maybe it is lethal.
But
have
anyway, you seen a picture of it out of the egg yet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes like things that are pied, like not all things. I mean, look at piebald ball pythons; they're healthy, but there's sometimes all white or pied animals can have defects. But that hognose actually looks pretty healthy to me. But yeah, we have not seen it out of the egg yet. from the appearance, I think it's actually probably healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously I didn't produce it, so I cannot be certain. I thought it was going to be like an almost all white snake to superform, or like really, really almost white with like grainy pattern on it. And I remember, I can't remember who it was. It may have even been my dad joke. I was like, what if the superform was a pied? I was like, man, that'd be insane. I was like, that'd kind of suck. And but I did say, I was like, it's going to have solid black eyes, and that was pretty easy to guess because sometimes skullface have like one black eye, so that's like part of that incomplete dom slipping through. And I did guess too that there was going to be a homozygous form, and it was going to be crazy looking. And I also guessed it was going to be like probably mostly white with shattering, but it ended up being like a pied. And I was right, was it solid black eyes. I wonder if that one has a pink tongue too. It might have a pink tongue. And but I wasn't. That's very nice looking though.
So there was also a lot of genes in that pairing because it was a skull, conda, triple heifer, lavender, toxic to the same.
Yeah, those other genes really aren't doing anything. Maybe the conda, conda might be doing something there, but the lavender toxic stuff, axanthic, lavender toffee, they're not going to have anything to do with piding.
No, not the pied, of course. Some of the background.
Well, the background to me, it looks like, for one, I have to look at it again, but it looks like there's some goldish there. So there's no axanthic. It's not a toffee. It's not a lavender.
I sent you the picture on your phone. You can just stare at it.
I mean, I've seen it before. That's the thing. It doesn't look like any visual recessive. It looks like it might be a conda.
Okay, so here's a follow-up question because sometimes we're a little hard on the project because the neurological issue.
Yeah.
If it's producing a pied, but it's a neurological pied, do you think the community will look past the neuro issue just to have a pied?
Well, that's the one thing there's a couple parts of that. Very, very good question. A very good topic. Because I was like, I don't want the pieding to misconstrue. Like, here's the thing. Pied or no pied, whatever the fate of skullface is, it should be with or without pied. So the thing is, and two, it's also, let's say the skullface is this way, and is the homozygous form worse? Because if it's even worse, it's like, then there's, more reason not to produce it. So there's limited evidence right now. Now, I was, and I've said this a fucking 8,000 times. It sounds like Patrick fucking Bateman from American Psycho was like, I got to return some videos. But I have to make a video. And I put in my Discord, like, I've produced a good number of skullface because the very first skullface I got from Philippe, I noticed some had some neuro issues, and I knew right away. I'm like, this is linked to this dominant mutation. Most likely, it has a crazy super form. I came up with like a lot of these, ideas and possibilities, and then it's like another thing is like if this mutation that's disrupting pigment cell migration is, of course, then responsible for the central nervous system development, and it's interfering with it, causing some to have neuro defects, you cannot separate it from the mutation. And so anyway, I'm like, but I got to do the benefit of the doubt. He's telling me, they're all fine. He doesn't have that problem. I sent the worst neuro one back. I was like, I don't even want this snake. He took it back, surprised. And anyway, I bred those, and I produced almost 60 skullface from 6 females. So I did very well breeding the females. Consistently, especially in my quarantine, because my quarantine, I'm not paying as much attention as my main stuff because I can't just be in there every few hours because it's my quarantine. But I did extremely well, double clutches, lots of babies, and so I ended up, and I put it in my Discord, and I'm keeping track of them, which ones are near, which ones are not, and so that's what I was kind of getting. So that evidence I'm going to, produce and show. And even if I don't do a video, I will be posting it, and then people can repeat it or misconstrue it and then say it didn't, like, we just heard this, and then people can repeat it back to me and be like, hey, Jeff, did you hear about this? Some guy had these skullface and he kept track of it. Go ahead, Dave. What are you going to say?
Do you notice with your higher expression skull faces that they have more neurological issues?
Good question. I noticed it with certain particular ones. I'll say that right now. And when I have because I don't want to, because here's the thing, man, when I release this information again, people repeat it, like, and they'll be like, oh, that's like common knowledge, when they know they didn't even know beforehand. And it's not everybody's doing that, but I've had a small percent of people.
I don't know anything about this.
Well, you're not in the Hognose community that much. So anyway, and then the thing is, too, those people are saying that, like, it only gets around to a few people sometimes. So it's not like not everybody knows what's going on. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna keep track, and I'd say by fall I'm gonna have some pretty definitive answers with stuff that I experienced, and you can take my reputation and experience, and I think I think that backs what I'm coming to the table with when I show what's going on with these skullface. But the homozygous form is pretty unique. Somebody was like, "Oh, it looks like a leucistic. It's just a paradox." I'm like, "No, that's not." I'm like, "That's definitely a homozygous skullface."
Yeah. I mean, that's baller. You know, we brought up pieds multiple times on different podcasts over the years, you know, what it'll do to that community if they can get a pied. Now, like you said, well, have you bred skullface to skullface, or yours too related to want to do that?
No, I haven't, because my skullface females are in my quarantine, and then there is also, like, you know, obviously, I mean, I'm still breeding some, you know, of course, for more information to reveal about it, and you know, I have some interesting stuff on it. I'd say that hasn't really been discussed, like some of it minorly, but it's kind of missed the mark a bit, in my opinion, based off of actual stuff I've seen. So it's not like just like a feeling, or, you know, it's evidence. But I think, yeah, people will be a little surprised by it. And what were we talking about before? I feel like there's a conclusion to this, and I don't know where I was going at.
I was asking about different expressions, the fact that pied's got, now that you guys have a pied, can we look past certain things? We're all over.
Well, yeah, well, the only way to get looked past if there's like a non, like the animals that are healthy that aren't displaying neuro issues, and it can be consistently reproduced. If they're able to produce like neuro ones, and it's going to inhibit the animal's health, you know, people aren't going to let that one go, of course. And, you know, that's why I initially, you know, brought that up. I'm like, this is a big deal, especially when you pay like $10,000 each for them. And then you actually have the person telling you that there isn't this issue, and, you know, they're lying about it. And then I even have, so go ahead.
Would you be willing to sacrifice a het leucistic to breed to a skullface to see if there's anything that goes on there?
Allelism, that'd be interesting, you know, because pieding is like similar. I doubt they're allelic. It's possible. It'd be very interesting, and I'm sure it's possible. It's very possible for recessives to be allelic with an incomplete dom. Oh, and that's what you're talking about, breeding skull to skull. That's where it's going. So anyway, yeah, after this, but yeah, I have not bred skull to skull face. In like a couple of years, like, well, actually in another year almost, I technically could if I wanted to, not saying I'm going to. But yeah, John Rice was really encouraging me to do that. He was like, for the sign, but now Philippe's actually done it. So that was before that, because, you know, people wanted to kind of know, or at least see what happens. I was like, well, somebody in China will do it if he's not going to talk about it or do it. And then, yeah, then he finally showed one. But, you know, we just had, again, it's just that one picture. We don't know if there's other ones or if they're always healthy. You know, there definitely needs to be probably more produced. But the one thing is, there's certain genes that definitely, with skull face, make it worse. And then there's certain genes that actually, you know, aren't so bad. But you gotta look at genes like, let's say, like spot nose ball python, you know, has a good one. And my friend Gabe from Reps in Texas brought up, and how that one's like a pretty minor neuro, to the point where it's like, I don't think it's unethical to reproduce them. It's such a minor and vague neuro issue.
Spot nose ball pythons?
Yeah.
Spot nose ball pythons don't really have a neuro until you get to the Powerball, which is a super form, and some can be extremely neuro, and some are not neuro at all. We're not.
Well, I know the homozygous are bad, but aren't the regular spot nose? Don't they have like a bit of neuro, or no?
Only when you run into other when you run them into other ones that are the same allele. Like when you make a spot nose champagne, it's really wobbly.
Oh, okay,
when you make a spot nose hidden gene Woma, it's very wobbly.
Because you're completing it. I get you. Okay, yeah. So I was wrong there. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, but spot nose by themselves, I haven't really seen that, and I've heard that some champagnes. I did
hear that, like champagnes could be. You know, the funny thing is, like, I had a champagne ball python. I bred it. I only got a few eggs, and I hatched out only one champagne. And those two, from my, they were perfectly fine. But that was the
most fine are fine.
Yeah, I've never seen it, because I didn't even know about that. Because I've seen so many champagnes and never seen or heard anything. But the one thing is too is, like, a lot of people. And I've said this in my live, and it kind of just got. This information got passed on, and it was incorrect. Like, you know, and it's still being compared. Like, I would say I would compare spider to skull face in the mode of inheritance, that, hey, they're incomplete DOMs, but with spider, we got a lethal homozygous form. It's lethal, right?
Yeah, it makes a white snake, and I mean that thing pretty much just spins itself to death. I mean, it is really bad.
Gotcha. So
and there's only been actually, you know what? They don't even come out of the egg. I was thinking about the Super Woma.
Gotcha. So okay, but the thing is, spider ball python is drastically worse than a skullface. The skullface is like, I even gave them on my eyes, like on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, they're like a 3. While spider ball python I'd put at like a 7. And then an Enigma leopard gecko, I'd put at like an 8. And that's just making room for 9s and 10s being like insanely disastrous death. Actually, an Enigma, I might even put it at 8.5 or a 9 because a percentage of them actually die. And then you have that same thing, man. It's just the funny thing is, you do this long enough, you see the same psychological pattern occur in different mutations and stuff with people keeping this stuff. They're like, oh, my Enigmas don't have neuro issues. And I bred the ones that don't have neuro issues. And it's never been true. And, like, I got an Enigma from this one breeder that was like, it had no neuro issues. And they're like, yeah, I breeded all my Enigmas. They don't have neuro issues. So I took that one I got from them, bred it. Yeah, and immediately started getting offspring that had neuro issues.
Yeah, you always keep on comparing it to the spider, but like when I think about the skullface, I compare it to the jag carpet python.
That might be a better comparison.
Yeah, but not as many people know about the neurological issues. And honestly, I don't even know what the super of that looks like. Like, I don't know if I'm sure they bred them together over the years. I don't know if it makes an all white animal. Right. I don't know what comes out of that project.
Well, the one thing is everybody like that the spider, like, I like to compare it a little bit just because for one, they have a, same mode of inheritance, incomplete DOM. It's a gene that's disrupting, cell migration pathways that are leading to, neurological issues. But then I do a scale comparison where spiders are like substantially worse. Not saying that, like, I did have some pretty bad skull face, but they are with a particular gene, and there's actually some genes that they're with that aren't good that nobody's like really talking about. But
can we talk about it? Are you holding that out for like a big like discussion later on?
Yeah, I'm going to hold it out just for a bit longer. I got babies. I got enough evidence pretty much, and so then I'm going to formulate it and present it.
Are you still going to send me one of these retarded skull faces, the ones you can't market?
I don't think you can say retarded.
Why is that?
Anyway, I should and maybe have one for you. Maybe, I don't know, man. They're like, none of them are like, I like. Well, here's the thing. I do, but another friend already got them because I gave them to him for free. If I have another one,
about the conversation we had that one time on a podcast.
That my friend got that one, unfortunately. So you missed out. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fine.
If I have another one like that, where it's like, and it's obviously somebody's like, should be pet only, and that's the thing too. We're still in limbo. Well, the one thing is there's people out there right now saying that, hey, these things should never be bred, and these people are people that don't actually have experience with them, and I understand the concern, especially for producing healthy animals. But at the same time, it's like, there definitely needs to be some more information put out there for people to, take into account everything and to actually know what's going on versus, jumping to conclusions. But the one thing is like, and you might say, I did that, but, not to sound, but I didn't. I was just talking about exactly what was occurring. And then, and then the thing was, I was told that there are no neuro issues, and there are neuro issues. And, definitely a big warning, to, if you're interested in buying them, breeding them. But again, the information I have is pretty interesting. I think it's definitely not going to be, nothing. It's not going to be less like, I think what people are expecting.
So, by the way, every time we've had this conversation, it's evolved to the point where now, I think when we first had it, it was like, man, we're not going to do these things. Now it's okay, maybe we're going to do these things. And now it seems like you're willing to work with the project a little bit.
Well, it's not so bad. I mean, I already produced a bunch of them, and I just want to give the information and the evidence of like what I have, and like, and still tell people like, hey, yeah, these things should be avoided in these scenarios. So Well, we'll see. But again, like I have some skullface that if they're a certain way, they're fine. But then I had one out of many that did sign in, like, oh man, that was not a good neuro issue, and I was expecting it not to have it. So now I'm already releasing some information I said I wasn't going to, but now it seems to have gotten better, and I haven't seen it again. So again, it's a little tricky. But somebody can easily simplify and say like, hey, well, these things have like this kind of issue, so they shouldn't be bred. But this is the one thing I hate, because we'll focus on this one, and they're like, this is good, and this is bad. And so right now, of course, skullface is bad. And again, that's all was actually started from me doing lives, and it was all very sincere and direct information I had from working with them. But then we'll look at genes that, let's say, like frosted and caramel. Like, they're, even if you do good outcrossing, they tend to have poor anatomical structure on their face sometimes. And, and that's a problem too, because some birds are like, no, that's not true. And it's true. I don't care what your lineages are. Well, the thing is, there's ways to move away from it. And so that's the thing. It's like, well, these ones can be worked on. It's like, well, can skullface be worked on? And it's like, I don't think it can be worked on. The mutation is fixed, but there might be something you could have it with. But then also with frost and caramels and hypos, I've seen it sometimes where people produce neuro ones. And it actually seems like you can get away from those. And actually genetically, once I kind of figured out how they worked, I'm like, oh, that's why you can get away from those neuro issues. That makes sense. So that's the thing too, when you have all these things lining up and it's like, this answers this, this answers this. It's like, then you've come to, you're very close, or you're spot on at least, or I should say you're spot on or very close at least. But anyway, but then there's, like, say, people every now and then produce a frosted that's neuro, but it's very infrequent. People just kind of brush it aside. And there's been many people that I've even hit frost with neuro issues. It's like, well, if I have like a 1 in 80 chance of hitting a frost with neuro issues, should we even breed frost? Albinos are prone to bug eyeing, and should we not even breed an albino? Lavenders seem to be a little predisposed to having kidney disease. It's rare, not talked about. A lot of people, and that's the thing I hate, but mine don't. And it's like, Jesus Christ. It's like, I have more diverse bloodlines of fucking lavenders than anybody. I got lavenders, like, if you want to, I got like lavender staple stuff. I have 5 separate projects right now. Now, I am kind of like a very big producer. I'm one of the largest producers of hognose snakes. Think what you want about me, whatever. I can't really change people's minds in certain things, but I don't really care to. But I love genetic diversity. The only way you're going to get substantial genetic diversity is with a large collection. And I'm not saying everybody should have a massive collection. And, I'm definitely not for mass producing and dumping stuff on the market. And, things have to be done with some tact. But, there's a lot of leeway for certain genes that have issues. And it's kind of like, and then, And so that's the thing. It's like, well, if you started Xing out like mutations that may have a problem, and then like Swiss chocolate, seems like females might have a little more issues, like slightly getting egg binding. But mine have actually been doing pretty well. So it's like, seems like, well, these might do better with outcrossing. So, and then it comes back to the thing. It's like, hey, can this be worked on, or, is it messed up from the get-go?
So, I feel like there's always a lot of factors, because almost every community has a animal with a neurological or some kind of defect. And honestly, the reason to push through in a community is one of two things. Either one, you don't have a lot of mutations and some people are willing to work with it, or two, it looks so fucking good, you kind of want to try a little bit just to see if you can get past the problems.
Yeah, and that's what I don't, because I don't want people's like opinions to be skewed, because like, oh man, here's the thing, if the homozygous is like, well, we know that is the homozygous form. It's a pied. It's a black-eyed pied. It's pretty cool. Now we got to see if it's healthy though. We got this one example. Is it a healthy animal that's able to thrive? And let's say it's able to thrive, but let's say it might have a minor neuro issue. I don't think just because something's really cool looking, and let's say it does have an issue, that it should be reproduced. And let's say it doesn't really have much of an issue either. Let's go with that route. Like, hey, this thing doesn't really even have any neuro issues. The homozygous is actually really good, and it's a pied. I mean, it's the biggest mass producer of hognose has it. So the project's kind of like, it's good, but they're never going to be real expensive. And I guess that's not really much of a negative. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens.
Okay, so you worked with Enigma when you were having leopard geckos, right?
Yes.
And you didn't really hesitate to work with Enigma because you like
No, because again, the breeder didn't fucking tell you. And then, you know, I was young. Yeah, I remember I was like around 20, so basically a child. I don't know anything. I'm not an adult yet. And then I you know, we got these first Enigmas, and we noticed the one kind of like pranced when it would like run. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. That's like a little weird looking. And then we started producing them, and we got some that, yeah, they have little neuro issues. And then we're talking on gecko forums, and other people are like, yeah, there's other people producing them. And at that point, yeah, we already produced like a bunch of them. And not, well, by a bunch, not even that many, like 10 of them. And then we were raising up, and everybody else was breeding them. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I'm not proud of it. Yeah, but we continued to breed them. And it wasn't until probably about 5 years of breeding them. And then, yeah, you'd have a small percent. And then one thing is we did learn things. Like, if you kept them at lower temperatures, it didn't exacerbate the neurological, like, you know, issues. And they did a lot better at these lower temps. You know, so there's some things we learned. But, yeah, after about 5 years almost, maybe it's like 4 years of working with them, we're like, yeah, we're done with this. And, you know, you could always say something, oh, you made your money back, or you did this or whatever.
All right, last question, then I'll let you go because, you know, it's been a long day for you, bud.
I know.
So have you tried incubating your eggs at different temperatures for your skull face to see if you had any difference in your babies when it came to neurological stuff? Because
I don't think it's going to do anything because like these cell migration patterns are happening no matter what temperature you're incubating at. So is it possible? I mean, I can't speak in absolutes. I don't know everything, and I'm not like, you know, really a professional at, you know, knowing what's going on. It'd be pretty egotistical of me to think that I know exactly what's going on, but we have a pretty good idea. And there's other examples like white cats where they're, you know, deaf because of the lack of pigment in their ears. And so it's not like I'm just like pulling this out of a hat. You know, there's a lot of things I extrapolate that makes sense. Anyway, I don't think it would do anything, but it's worth a shot.
Well, I mean, I think it's worth a shot. That was something that was talked about in the ball python community with the spider ball python. You know, I have started incubating my palmetto corn snake eggs at a lower temperature, and I'm getting way less eye bulging with my males compared to
I remember Glenn Reptiles was talking about that. I thought that was very interesting at the low temps. And when you were saying that, I thought that's the way you were going, that, oh, the bug eyeing is less frequent, it's more infrequent or not happening. So I'd be interested to see if that keeps consistently showing through. And yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, maybe it could actually help, but I mean, I don't think it would in their case, but yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, you have different environments in your building that if you're like, I'm going to put these eggs in this room, you know, you can put one of those little thermometers on there that kind of gives you like an average temp, tells you when you have spikes, things like that.
I have been incubating my Hognose eggs, especially this year, significantly cooler. The funny thing is they're still hatching out at a pretty quick rate. You know, some of them are incubating between like 75 and they go up to like 78 sometimes, 79 tops, and they're mostly around 77, 78. And I'm still getting like day 60, 61, sometimes up to 64 days to hatch.
Okay. I'd have to look at my corn snakes, see when they hatched out. I know we've talked about it. My womb was hatched out really early this year. I think my incubator was just a little bit warmer, like day 52 kind of stuff, I believe. Might have been earlier than that. Marshall will correct me when I'm off of this. I should know better. But no, man. Well, how about this? What show you at this weekend?
Puyallup. I'm in Washington right now. Yeah, I'm going to go. Crystal fell asleep, which is good. She needed to sleep. I wanted to go to this park that's very nice. It's around the corner. The Douglas firs there are amazing, and they have monkey bars. Usually I go there, and I try to go across the monkey bars as fast as I can, and I can see if I can fuck up my rotator cuff.
That's good, man. You're getting old. That's going to pay off in a couple of years.
All right. I just don't see myself as an old person. So like, I still want to try to like do stuff like that. So we'll see if how badly I get injured or not injured.
No, I'm the same, man. Well, you know, I'm sure I'll talk to you, but like I mentioned, I'll be in Detroit on the 2nd and 3rd. I don't think my first hockey game on Saturday is till like 8 p.m. So.
Oh, you're still doing hockey? Look, you're an old guy doing hockey.
Still trying, buddy. You know what really sucks? I got invited to play in this tournament up in Detroit, And I said yes, and I realized I'm on a 35 and older team now. It's the first time in my entire hockey career
Oh shit!
I've had to play with old guys. I'm excited, but not excited anymore.
Can't you play? Can't you be like the token young guy? I feel like that'd be like cool. Like you're coming out of retirement, and we got Dave. This fucker is fucking 40 years old, and you're playing with like 20-year-olds, and you start. I think that's cool, man.
I do that every year. I do one tournament a year, and I usually play in the like adult division or whatever. But no, it's it's really nice. And you don't know hockey, but there was this goalie I watched growing up. His name was Urbe, and he literally wore the same pair of goalie pads his entire career in the NHL. He'd sew them back together. They look like shit. That's how my stuff looks.
Nice.
I haven't bought anything new in over a decade, so I got all these guys around with this like modern stuff, and I just got these like mattresses on my legs. But it's also good because it makes people think I suck. So when I'm good, it's a surprise for them.
That's funny. That's cool. You still play though. I know you played on and off. I didn't know you're still playing, but yeah, message me when you're in Detroit. I can see because that's not super far from me. I mean, it's not close either. It's like a 3-hour, maybe a 10, 20-minute drive. That'd be pretty neat to actually go up there.
I'll well, like I said, if you can make it up, make it up. I'm sure I'll remind you like 4 or 5 times. You'll find a reason not to come.
Maybe I know. Okay. I thought we got choked out with work, and then the thing is like, but the thing is, dude, there is a spot I know not too far from there. It is in Ohio. It's probably about an hour from there for Eastern Hognose snakes.
I'd be game for that. I honestly still need to see a fox snake, buddy. Like
there's fox snakes in that area too, but we'd have to go a little closer to Erie, but. I've never even seen that many fox snakes myself. I don't ever really go up by Erie that much.
We have a population in Missouri. I think it's more the western part of the state. There's a herper that I follow his stuff, and he had a picture. He was holding up 4 on one flip, and they were all big.
That's pretty cool. That's one of the cooler pantherophytes. I mean, I love rat snakes. I mean, I like black rats and fox snakes. I really like both of those. They're definitely overlooked as far as popular pet snake. It's because corn snakes, there's so many damn cool morphs you can get. So no wonder.
Have you ever seen a fox snake on a table at a show?
Yes, not often. Yeah, well, the ones, a lot of the ones I've seen that don't really count because it's in the 90s when I was a kid. I remember seeing them for like $50 and $60, and they were wild caught ones. And I did see some captive born ones one time a long time ago, and they were labeled as Western fox snakes. I remember a few breeders used to have them. It's my friend Tim actually asked, like, goes, if you ever see anybody, he's like, dude, I was like, I've never seen anybody with fox snakes, and they're actually really cool. You find them in the wild, and these things when you pick them up, they're very nice and they don't bite, and so and they're very pretty. They're an awesome species. So it's a little like unfortunate that there isn't like a few more being bred. I mean, we do already have a lot of snakes in captivity that need homes, but it'd be cool still if somebody had a little niche fox snake project.
Yeah, like I said, they make really attractive adults. They're docile, and there's so many other native species you see in captivity. That's one I'm just kind of surprised never really made it into the mainstream.
Yeah, and you could line breed the heck out of those too. They get those nice orange copper tones. If somebody had been selectively line breeding those for like 20 years, you'd probably ask them like rusty, dark orange fucking ones with black spots. They look awesome. They look awesome as they are. But Dave, thanks for the good conversation. You're always good at getting me going on genetics and rolling out good questions.
Yeah, I'm a little bummed out. I wanted to talk colonoscopies because why not? But we'll do that next time.
Okay, we can do that next time. All right, man.
All right, peace out, bud.
Later, dude. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. That was a fun one. See you around, Dave. See you, everybody. And if you're in the Washington area, come out to the fairgrounds. Be here all weekend. Bye.